from English explorers even report a form of the sport being played by the Inuit people of Greenland in the 1500s, Native Americans in Virginia in the 1600s, and on the Australian continent by indigenous Australians in the 1880s. Meanwhile, back in Europe, and particularly in Britain and Ireland, there was a rather lawless and aggressive medieval sport, sometimes referred to as mob football, typically played between local villages. The early seeds of football as we know was sown in upper-class and swap halves at half-time and brought in sendings off for serious foul play, a rule implementation still lambasted by Sergio Ramos to this day. Crossbars replaced tape at the top of the goal, matches were set 90 minutes in length, and referees were given whistles. In 1885, professionalism was legalised as the FA feared the major northern clubs forming a breakaway league, and in 1888, the Football Association created the world's first football league, known as the Football League, with 12 founding members. Preston North End won the world's first league title, becoming the first and still the only English league to go unbeaten during an entire campaign, as they also lifted the FA Cup. The 1890s saw the further globalisation of football along the introduction of nets, as New Zealand, Argentina and Singapore joined the list of countries with their own football associations. In 1904, FIFA was founded as world football's governing body, along with the city of course, and in 1906, England joined the organisation. Significantly, football was officially introduced as part of the Olympic Games and the 1908 Games in London in what would be the first meeting of international teams in a global knockout competition. Football had been played at the 1900 and 1904 games, but only by clubs and scratch teams. France was so keen that they entered two teams, but their first string were beaten 17-1 by Denmark, who went on to lose 2-0, to the host Great Britain in the gold medal match. Great Britain won gold again in 1912, the same year the goalkeepers were banned from using their hands outside of the area, while Uruguay won the first Copa America in 1960. Following the First World War, which disrupted European football, the game's first stars were born. The likes of Dixie Dean, Arthur Friedenreich and Jose Andrade reached a level of fame outside of their home nations not previously seen. The 1924 Olympics was the first time European and South American opposition had met at international level. Uruguay cruised to the gold medal, although Denmark and Great Britain refused to compete due to FIFA refusing to enforce a strict all-amateur status. The same dispute saw the FA pull out FIFA altogether in 1928, meaning they would not feature in the 1930 referees for all of Italy, and 1956, losing just one game in 6 years, but that game was the 1954 World Cup final against West Germany. The European Cup was founded in 1955, and Real Madrid won the first 5 editions with a star-studded lineup featuring former club hot-headed and stocky attacking midfielder by the name of Diego Armando Maradona, who graced a football pitch as though he were a gift from God. Maradona later claimed it was via the hand of God that he scored a handball against England.
Modern football. In 1863, new and more detailed Cambridge rules are published, but just a few days later, the newly formed Football Association, which represents 11 London clubs and is the first federation in history, publishes its own rules inspired by the Cambridge rules. The clubs that favor handling, seeing the rules evolve towards dribbling, come together in 1871 to found the Rugby Football Union. This marks the break between rugby football and the Football Association, which is today more commonly known as simply football or soccer. The same year, the Football Association organizes the first FA Cup. The matches last 90 minutes and feature 2 teams of 11 players, including, for the first time, a goalkeeper. In 1872, the first international match between England and Scotland takes place and ends in a draw, 0-0. At that time, the United Kingdom is the leading economic and colonial power in the world. British nationals are sent all around the world to serve the empire. Railway workers in Latin America, students in Switzerland, or simply British communities found clubs around the world to play Football Association, rugby football, or sometimes a combination of both. In 1881, the first international women's game takes place between England and Scotland. But the fact that women are playing football is frowned upon, and during the return match, a crowd attacks the players, forcing them to flee in their omnibus. Around the world, the sport becomes increasingly popular, and many new clubs and federations are created. In 1902, the first international matches outside the United Kingdom are held. Argentina beats Uruguay 6-0 in one match, and in the other, the Austrian team wins 5-0 against the Hungarian team. In 1904, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, or FIFA, is founded in Paris. At first, it brings together 7 countries, with its role being to organize international matches. More nations quickly joined FIFA. However, France is opposed to England's application because it wants each country to be represented by a single federation. The United Kingdom has the 4 oldest federations in history, and they don't want to merge. Finally, after a vote, England is admitted separately. In 1908, at the London Olympic Games, football is officially admitted for the first time. Professionalism being then forbidden at the Olympic Games, it's the England national amateur football team which represents the country and which wins the gold medal. In 1910, FIFA exceptionally accepts the application of Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. The 4 British federations could therefore play international matches, but at the Olympic Games, only the England amateur team could represent the country. In 1912, at the Olympic Games in Stockholm, it wins again. In 1916, during World War I, Argentina celebrates its 100 years of independence by organizing a football tournament with Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay. On this occasion, CONMEBOL, the first continental confederation, is founded. In 1920, during the Antwerp Olympic Games, in which Egypt is the first non-European country to participate, Belgium wins, and in 1924 in Paris, Uruguay wins the gold medal in its first participation. Football becomes so popular that many leagues become professional, and as a result, more and more players could no longer represent their country at the Olympic Games, which remains reserved for amateurs. FIFA then thinks of creating its own international competition, which would consist of professional teams. In 1928, during the Olympic Games in Amsterdam, FIFA announces its project to create its own World Cup. Uruguay, after its new victory at the Olympic Games, is chosen to host the first World Cup, which would take place in 1930 on the occasion of the centenary of the country's independence. Uruguay undertakes to build a new stadium for the occasion, but in Europe, the players and federations have little interest in this event, especially since it takes about 2 weeks by ship to reach Uruguay, and therefore the entire trip will take 2 months. After many negotiations, only 4 European countries agree to participate. The World Cup final is played between Uruguay and Argentina, whose rivalry is so strong that a referee can be found only a few hours before the match, and who agrees to adjudicate the match only if he is protected. Both teams come with their own ball. One half is played with the Argentine ball and the other with the Uruguayan. Uruguay wins 4-2. 4 years later, it's the turn of Mussolini's fascist Italy to host the World Cup, which is the first to be broadcast live on the radio. Uruguay chooses not to participate in response to the lack of interest shown by European countries for its cup. In the final, Italy wins against Czechoslovakia 2-1. In 1936, FIFA chooses to play the next World Cup in France, which provokes the anger of Latin American countries who want the cup to be played alternately between the 2 continents. Uruguay and Argentina decide then not to participate. Spain, which is in the middle of a civil war, does not participate either. And a few months before the Cup, Austria, which had qualified, is annexed by Nazi Germany. In the final, Italy retains its title by beating Hungary 4-2. World War II then brings the competition to a halt for the next 12 years. The World Cup resumes in 1950 in Brazil. Germany and Japan, which are occupied, are not allowed to participate. In addition, at the beginning of the Cold War, the countries of the Eastern Bloc do not participate either. Only 13 countries play in the finals, including England, which was previously in conflict with FIFA and participates for the first time. But to everyone's surprise, England is eliminated in the group stage after losing to the United States and Spain. This is the only World Cup that does not end with a final, but with a finalist group. By chance, the two favorites, Uruguay and Brazil, face each other in the last match, which is played in the brand new Maracana Stadium with a record capacity of 200,000 spectators. A draw would be enough for Brazil to be champion. However, Uruguay wins 2-1 in front of a stunned Brazilian audience. 4 years later, Switzerland hosts the competition, which is the first to be broadcast on television. Hungary, which is undefeated for 31 games, is the favorite. However, to everyone's surprise, West Germany narrowly wins the final, thanks to a goal scored in the final minutes of the game. In 1954, the Asian Football Confederation and the Union of European Football Associations, or UEFA, are founded. The following year, the first European Champion Clubs Cup is organized, the predecessor of the prestigious Champions League. Finally, in 1957, in the context of decolonization, the Confederation of African Football is founded by Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, and South Africa. But the latter is disqualified from the first African Cup because the country practices apartheid and do not have a multiracial team. In 1958, Sweden hosts the World Cup. It's the only time in which the 4 British federations participate, and it's the first participation of the USSR. The Brazilian team dominates, thanks to its new 17-year-old star, Edson Arantes do Nascimento, better known as Pele, and who will come to be known as one of the greatest footballers in history. In the final, he scores 2 goals against Sweden, giving Brazil its first title. In 1961, the Confederation of North, Central America, and Caribbean Association Football is founded. The following year, during the World Cup in Chile, Brazil retains its title by beating Czechoslovakia 3-1. In 1963, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Football Association, a match is organized at Wembley Stadium between England and a FIFA World Selection. England wins 2-1. 3 years later, England hosts the World Cup. The competition is marked by the first participation of North Korea, which is not recognized by the United Kingdom, this being the case since the Korean War. England wins the final against West Germany. The same year, the Oceania Football Confederation is founded. In 1969, in Central America, while the rivalry is strong between El Salvador and Honduras, the two countries have to play 3 qualifying matches for the next World Cup. At the end of the games, under high tension and after some scuffles, a short war of 100 hours breaks out between the two countries, resulting in 3,000 casualties. The following year, in 1970, Mexico organizes the World Cup, which is the first to be broadcast in color on television. For better visibility on screen, Adidas creates the famous Telstar ball with its black and white design. This is also the first cup played with the yellow and red cards. In the final, Brazil wins against Italy and therefore can keep the prestigious Jules Rimet Cup, which was intended to end up in the first country to win 3 World Cups. FIFA then creates a new trophy that can only stay for a short time with future champions. In 1974, in the middle of the Cold War, West Germany hosts the World Cup, including in West Berlin, with the Berlin Wall, of course, still dividing the city. On this occasion, the only match in history between West and East Germany takes place. In the final, West Germany wins against the Netherlands. In 1976, just as Argentina is preparing to host the next World Cup, a coup d'etat takes place and a military dictatorship seizes power. Despite the controversy, the country still organizes and hosts the World Cup, but the event is marked by a series of suspicions of cheating in favor of Argentina, which is allowed to play its matches in staggered order, thus having the advantage of knowing the scores of the other matches. Argentina wins the final against the Netherlands. Football becomes more and more popular in the world, generating more and more money through ticket sales, TV rights, merchandising, and advertising. Clubs are getting richer and attracting more and bigger investors, while the value of players is rising. In 1982, FC Barcelona buys the new Argentine star Diego Maradona for a record amount of roughly 7 million euros. That same year, host Franco Spain hosts the World Cup, which is the first to be played by 24 teams and which is seen by 1 billion viewers worldwide. The event is marred by the match between West Germany and Austria, which is called the Disgrace of Gijón. After a German goal, the two teams who are sure to be qualified slow down their game, eliminating Algeria. On the other hand, France and West Germany face each other in a match full of twists, and it's the first of the competition to end in a penalty shootout. In the final, Italy wins against West Germany. In 1986, Mexico hosts the World Cup again, replacing Colombia, which had withdrawn. Diego Maradona is at the top of his game. During a match between Argentina and England, he scores a goal with his hand that's validated nonetheless and becomes known as the Hand of God. 4 minutes later, he scores one of the most beautiful goals in history, which comes to be known as the goal of the century. In the final, Argentina wins against West Germany. 4 years later, during the World Cup in Italy, West Germany takes its revenge by beating Argentina in the final. In 1991, the first Women's World Cup is held in China and is won by the U.S. team. 3 years later, the United States organizes the World Cup. A reunified Germany participates for the first time, as well as Russia after the fall of the USSR. The final between Brazil and Italy is the first final to end in a penalty shootout. Brazil wins 3-2. In 1998, France organizes the first World Cup played with 32 teams. In the final, France wins against Brazil 3-0 with 2 goals from Zinedine Zidane. In 2001, Zidane is bought by Real Madrid for the record sum of 75 million euros. The following year, in 2002, Japan and South Korea co-host the World Cup. To everyone's surprise, Turkey and South Korea reach the semifinals. But above all, the final is greatly anticipated as it hits Brazil versus Germany, who still had not met during a World Cup, whereas since 1950 and except in 1978, all the finals were played by one of the two teams. Brazil wins 2-0 thanks to a double by Ronaldo. It's the 5th title for Brazil, which consolidates its status as best team in the world. In 2006, Germany hosts the World Cup. During the final between France and Italy, Zidane, who plays the last game of his career, is excluded after having given a headbutt to an opponent. Italy wins in a penalty shootout. In 2010, South Africa is the first African country to host the World Cup. The event is followed by 3.2 billion viewers. The final is between the Netherlands and Spain, who have never won a World Cup. Spain wins its first title, while the Netherlands loses its 3rd final. At the end of 2010, FIFA awards the 2018 and 2022 World Cups to Russia and Qatar. These choices are controversial because there are serious suspicions of corruption, and the two countries are accused of not respecting human rights. Qatar is now investing heavily in football, notably by buying PSG for 70 million euros. The objective is to transform the club, which is in the middle of a crisis, into a major European club capable of winning a Champions League. In 2013, Brazil, which is preparing to host the next World Cup, is challenged by huge demonstrations protesting the excessive expenses made for the organization. The following year, during the World Cup Germany and Brazil meet for the second time. This time, Germany wins big, 7-1, which is experienced as a humiliation by a large part of the Brazilian population. In the final, Germany beats Argentina and becomes the first European country to win in Latin America. In 2017, PSG makes the most expensive transfer in history by buying Neymar for €220 million. The following year, the club follows up with the purchase of Kylian Mbappe for €180 million. The same year, the World Cup is played in Russia. The event is followed by half the world population. In the final, France wins its second title against Croatia. From this point on, all eyes turn to Qatar, which is preparing for the 2022 World Cup. The small country of 3 million inhabitants must be able to welcome more than 1 million supporters and must therefore build a lot of infrastructure, including hotels, a metro, and stadiums. 2 million migrant workers are working on this project, but many NGOs denounce the Qatari system that allows employers to confiscate the passports of their workers to prevent them from leaving, even though they have no rights or even a minimum wage. Under pressure, Qatar is changing its laws to improve working conditions, but over a 10-year period, more than 6,500 workers have already died on World Cup construction sites. From an ecological point of view, the choice to air condition the stadiums, which are under the open sky, is also highly criticized. After Qatar, the next World Cup to be played in 2026 will be held in Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and should be the first to include 48 teams. Today, football is the most popular sport in the world. It's played by approximately 275 million players, 13 million of whom are women, and generates approximately €400 billion in profits worldwide.
عادت الكرة للنصر، تحضير طلب للويس جوستافو الكرة، كريستيانو يمر يكسب، لا، الهويش يشير إلى ركلة مرمى. كريستيانو رونالدو يطالب بوجود ركلة جزاء. هذا الحال غير راضي على القرار. كرة في التغطية، عظم المباريات الآن تسديدة، كرة تصطد، عادت الحسن. وما ليلة البارحة وحديثها منكم ببعيد، اكتساح. ماذا عن تفاريس؟ لويس حسن، بعيد. المباريات الخمس باتجاه أول لمسة لسنبل، يحيى سنبل يقدم مباراة رائعة ويرسل الكرة باتجاه الثالث. الكرة طالت على أيمن، مرتدات، كان ذلك قبل المواقع في الوضع الطبيعي. يرسل كرة، غريب، فرصة للثالث.
Association football is the most popular sport, watched and played by millions, if not billions of people every week. It's a sport which can make the world stand still, stop wars, and rock hold nations. Those of you who are subscribed to this YouTube channel know that I'm passionate about both history and football, and few subjects get my juices flowing quite as much as the combination of two. So today I've set myself the task of trying to give the most comprehensive rundown of the entire history of the sport in 10 minutes. That isn't an easy task, and if you're wondering why I'm not speaking faster, that's because I have to. About to though, and if I could, I'd stick a clock in the corner of this video to count down my 10 minutes, but I suspect I'm too technologically challenged to figure out how to do. Right, strap in, ready, and set your stopwatches. Here is the history of football in under 10 minutes. Numerous territories lay claim to having the earliest interpretations of football, dating all the way back to ancient Greece. FIFA recognises the Chinese sport of Kung BC as the earliest form of football for which there is evidence. The Chinese had another variation of the sport called kamari, along with the ancient Greeks and Romans, who also had ball games called different. Accounts from English explorers even report a form of the sport being played by the Inuit people of Greenland in the 1500s, Native Americans in Virginia in the 1600s, and on the Australian continent by indigenous Australians in the 1880s. Meanwhile, back in Europe, and particularly in Britain and Ireland, there was a rather lawless and aggressive medieval sport, sometimes referred to as mob football, typically played between local villages. The early seeds of football as we know it was sown in upper-class public schools in England, and these fee-paying schools were the first to adopt codifying sport in the 1700s. In the early to mid-1800s, Cambridge rules and Sheffield rules were the dominant codes, but both would soon be replaced with the founding of the Football Association in 1863. The world's first football association, the FA, were headed up by Hull native Ebenezer Morley, who drew up the first unified laws of the game the year the organisation was founded. The world's first association football clubs such as Cambridge University, Barnes, Sheffield FC and Hallam FC were founded in the mid-1800s. And after, in 1860, the first non-British team was founded in Lucerne in Switzerland, followed by the first non-European team, Buenos Aires FC, founded in Argentina in 1867. Both Lucerne and Buenos Aires football clubs were founded by British people, railway workers and managers in Argentina, and by students in Switzerland, and represented the start of the sport spreading internationally. In 1867, the world's first football tournament, the UBAC Cup, took place in Sheffield and was won by Hallam FC. Later, the world's first nationwide competition and the world's oldest football tournament still in existence was born, the Football Association Cup. First final, seeing London club Wanderers FC overcome the Royal Engineers. The first international football match between England and Scotland took place in 1870, followed by the first international match recognised by FIFA in 1872. Both games ended in draws. During the 1870s and 1880s, football went from a rigidly individualistic sport in which players looked to dribble as far as they could without losing the ball to a much more tactical team sport, an innovation led primarily by the Scottish clubs. During this time, British students, workers and touring teams began to spread the FA rules of the game further onto France, Germany, Canada and Scandinavia. In 1873, the FA decided the teams would swap halves at half-time and brought in sendings off for series foul play, a rule implementation still lambasted by Sergio Ramos to this day. Crossbars replaced tape at the top of the goal, and referees took the whistle. In 1885, professionalism was legalised as the FA favored major northern clubs forming a breakaway league. In 1888, the Football Association created the world's first football league, known as the Football League, with 12 founding members. Preston North End won the world's first league title, becoming the first and still the only league to go unbeaten during an entire campaign, as they also listened to the fake. The 1890s saw the further globalisation of football. Next, New Zealand, Argentina and Singapore joined the list of countries with their own football associations. In 1904, FIFA was founded as world football's governing body, City of course, and in 1906, England joined the organisation. Significantly, football was officially introduced as part of the Olympic Games and the 1908 Games in London in what would be the first meeting of international teams in a global knockout competition. Football had been played in the 1900 and 1904 Games, but only by clubs and scratch. France was so keen that they entered two teams, but their first string of beating 17-1 by Denmark, who went 2-0 to the host Great Britain in the gold match. Great Britain won gold again in 1912, the same year goalkeeping outside the area. Uruguay won the first Copa America in 1960. Following the First World War which disrupted European football, the game's first national tournament in 1918, after Free Frank and Jose Andrade reached a level of fame outside of their home nations not previously seen. The 1924 Olympics was the first time European and South American opposition had met at international level. Uruguay cruised to the gold medal, although Denmark and Great Britain refused to compete due to FIFA refusing to enforce a strict all-amateur status. The same dispute saw the FA pull out FIFA altogether in 1928, meaning they would not feature in the 1930, 1934 or 1938 World Cups. Uruguay defended their crown in style once again at the 1928 Olympics, hosting rights for the very first World Cup finals in 1950. There were almost no European teams at the world's first World Cup, before made Spain, and Belgium, France, Yugoslavia and Romania ended up making the journey by sea. Uruguay and Argentina were the favourites, and they crushed all in their wake en route to the final. Uruguay became the first FIFA World Cup host. In 1934, fascist Italy were chosen as their hosts, a reminder that questionable host selection by FIFA is not a new invention. Uruguay refused to participate due to the European teams not travelling to South America, the Brits were still in FIFA exile, and Italy won the trophy after Mussolini picked and bet with the referees for all of its use games. As suspect as that sounds, and indeed was, Italy did prove their class by winning the first back in France in 1938. A major international club competition was set up in 1927 called the Tropa Cup, competing between the best club sides in Central Europe, and it would be the first There were no World Cups until 1934 and 1950, with termination devastation world was a tremendous team emerged the conflict of the tournament. Britain had been decimated by the war, but England had managed to assemble a best of the team during that time. Matthews became arguably the sport's most global superstar, joined by tremendous figures like Carter, Neil Franklin, Mannion, and Stevens. Another great team of the 1940s had the Torino side, Torino, who provided the bulk of the Italy team. Torino won 4 consecutive league titles up until 1949, when their entire team was killed in the Super League air disaster in Kora as the team returned home from the game against Benfica. The World Cup returned in 1950, and it returned to South America for the first time since 1940. Brazil were the hosts and true favourites. England were humiliated by the United States at their first World Cup, signalling the end of their golden generation. Uruguay returned to the competition for 2 titles. They returned in spectacular fashion, with a goal down in the decisive game of the finals against the host. Consecutive European Cups, followed by 3 consecutive European titles.
Bate De Bruyne peste zi. Iată, iată
Direct în vincul, Kevin De Bruyne marchează.
الشاب اليافع.
Falsche Richtung. Junge. Falsche Richtung. Junge. Start.